Good evening, everyone. This is the final meeting for our Audit and Finance 2022 budget. And so before I get started, I'm just going to read a little introduction here, okay? And remind you that this is the Audit and Finance Committee 2022 Agency Budgets Review. And tonight we have the Audit and Finance separately elected officials for this Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021. If there are, I'm going to speak with everyone tonight. You'll be asked a series of questions related to your budget, and you're expected to answer as completely as you can. If an answer to our questions cannot be provided at this time, then please indicate when you're able to provide it to the committee. Legislators have been provided with your written request to our budget information request letter, and we thank you for your cooperation and providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of the budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's hearing. So I'm going to move forward now, and I am going to take attendance. So we'll start with Mr. Beston.
Here.
Mr. Brewski. Mr. Bergdorf is excused. Ms. Chapman. Mr. Clay.
Here.
Good evening, Mr. Clay, our chairman of our Legislative Black Caucus. Thank you. Mr. Cleary.
Mr. Chapman, Ms. Chapman's here, I'm sorry.
Okay, very good, thank you. Mr. Cleary? Are you on mute, Mr. Cleary? Okay. Mr. Camiso? Ms. Cunningham?
Here.
Mr. Demolowitz? Mr. Drake? Mr. Epicoro?
Here.
Mr. Ethier? Mr. Feeney? Mr. Fine? Mr. Grimm?
Here.
Mr. Ray Joyce?
Here.
Mr. Kuhn? Ms. Lakakis?
Here.
Ms. Lockhart?
Here.
Mr. Moriello, our minority leader?
Here.
Mr. Mayo?
Here.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Here.
Ms. McLean Lane? Mr. Miller?
Present.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Mr. Purley?
Here.
Mr. Peter?
Here.
I'm missing you tonight. Ms. Plotsky?
Here.
Mr. Reedy?
Here.
Mr. Reinhardt? Mr. Ricard?
Present, Madam Chair.
Mr. Simpson? Mr. Smith? Mr. Touche?
Present.
Mr. Tunney?
Present.
Mr. Ward?
Present.
Ms. Whalen? And myself, Ms. Willingham.
Madam Chairwoman, please note my attendance. I apologize for interrupting.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Ms. McLean Lane.
Mr. Cleary, too.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cleary.
Mr. Fine, too.
Thank you, Mr. Fine. Okay. All right, now, we're going to get started now, and I am going to ask, is Mr. Lynch present?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair.
All right, good evening to you, and we are going to start with you again. I just want to repeat that the county executive starts on page 99. Could
Thank
please-
you.
Please begin.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'm standing in for the county executive this evening. Happy to present the 22 budget. I know there's been a lot of anticipation about the comprehensive workforce development plan, and I'll do my best this evening to answer as many questions and explain what the plan consists of to the best of my ability this evening. I want to start by thanking Madam Chairwoman and the Audit and Finance Committee for deferring all questions regarding the plan until my presentation this evening. That is much appreciated. And I'm happy that I was able to pass that along to our commissioners and directors prior to their presentation. In an effort to familiarize the committee with the plan, I have provided to the legislature the executive summary, a list of the title changes, and the list of the proposed salaries for the commissioners and their deputies in advance. That was done in an effort to hopefully be able to answer some of your questions before this evening's presentation. As with the reshuffling of the scheduling, the county executive's office was put on the tail end of the presentation. So hopefully that was helpful. Before we jump into the comprehensive workforce development plan, I'd like to start with a summary of the county executive's proposed 22 budget first. And I'll do so expeditiously so we could try to get through all the questions you may have. The executive budget stays under the state mandated tax cap for the 9th straight year, does not increase the tax rate. This is the 4th year in a row. The average property owner will see a tax rate decrease, although it is slight, still decrease. This is the 5th year in a row that the state controller has placed Albany County in a category of no designation of fiscal stress. This is a balanced budget, $750 million, which is a 4.75% increase from last year's adopted budget of $719 million. The average $200,000 house would see about a $6 decrease in their taxes. There's no layoffs or cuts in programs or services. And this was accomplished both during a global health crisis and an economic crisis. I'm very proud of that. How is this achieved? It's been achieved. This is a many-year process. It started in 2012, and that diligent work of paying down debts while also adding money to the reserves has put us in a stable situation. Albany County also was a beneficiary, as you all know, of $29 million this year from federal stimulus money. $27.5 million of that made up for lost revenues and increased expenses from the pandemic. Last year, we also offered the employee separation payout, which netted 72 employees. It approved to separate employment, saving Albany County about $5 million in salaries and benefits, and those savings continue into 2022. We streamlined and were right-sizing the workforce through the comprehensive development workforce plan to yield employee retention, equity, and career progression. Part of the plan involves employee incentives with improved longevity pay, medical, dental, and vision plans. Also includes a 2% raise for non-union workers. Contained within the 22 budget are also some substantial investments, a $250,000 investment into the Advanced Albany County Alliance, our LDC. Are happy in the direction in which that is going. And I know that there's a lot of interest from the chair of the legislature and many members who have reached out to us. We're very proud of the path in which the LDC has taken. And we've also committed an additional $250,000 to the Albany County Land Bank. That's a total of $3.5 million since inception. We are also in the 4th year of increased funding under the statewide implementation of Harrell Herring. The indigent legal defense reform bill that was passed a few years ago and was drafted in this office. We're very proud of that as well. So that's a quick overview of the executive budget. I do want to get into next the executive, the county executive's office budget. Two matters of note. Otherwise, the budget is status quo from last year. First is the addition of a new senior policy analyst. The focus of this new position is to address a couple areas of immediate concern: health equity strategy and issues, and the handling of changing policy directives from both the federal and state governments. Secondly, salary adjustments in excess of 2% for 5 leadership positions within the department. And I will discuss the need for all of the proposed adjustments beyond the 2% during my comments on the comprehensive workforce plan. At that point, if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, I'd like to now shift my attention to the comprehensive workforce development plan and touch on some of the main issues or main goals of this plan, if that's okay.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So in March of 2021, the county executive announced a comprehensive workforce development plan. The intent was to match Albany County's resources, goals, and needs to the abilities of our advancing technology and our skilled workforce with a strong focus on equity. It is a long-term plan that will modernize the workforce over the next decade. The plan incorporates objectives from the equity agenda and will be continually evolving to meet the needs of our rapidly changing county. To say it plainly, this is a living document. It is an evolving document and plan. So what is being presented to you this evening is phase 1 or step 1 of a multi-year outlook of how we could bring equity to our workforce through, I think, very strategic decisions that we have proposed. As the plan continues to evolve, you can expect to see RLAs submitted throughout the year for position and title changes, as well as updates and subsequent annual budget submissions. So where did it start from? The need for the plan was identified during the onset of COVID-19 when the county executive directed a more stringent review of vacancies. So as you all are all aware, our committee to fill was utilized. The vacancy evaluation process was utilized. All the elected officials have been thankfully participating, and we have been able to save the county in excess of $4 million last year through that process. As I mentioned earlier, the earlier separation payout, over 90 positions were eliminated from the budget. Only 6 of those positions were returned into the 2022 executive department budget. Overall, 70 positions still remain unfunded and vacant for year-over savings in excess of $4 million. The decision was made not to just refund the positions. With the vacancies from ESP and the hiring freeze, the time was right for a holistic approach in looking at all positions and how the county government operates as a whole. Thus, the creation of the comprehensive workforce development plan. Not only was a review conducted to investigate monetary impact of filling the vacancies, but to evaluate how the position fit into the future of county operations. So this was a joint project with input from the county executive's office, our human resources office, civil service, and the Department of Management and Budget. All executive branch departments were involved through an initial uniform questionnaire, individual department meetings, and intra-departmental meetings, which dovetailed the plan with the annual budget. In the executive summary that I provided in advance to my conversation this evening, I had provided a timeline of that's outlined, the timeline of the meetings and what was accomplished over the course of the last year. And I would mention in height of dealing with COVID response during the pandemic. And many may say, why now? Well, it was glaring to us that something needed to be done. And instead of putting it on the back burner, we addressed it. And I want to, commend the staff. I want to commend all the departments that were involved. And that's each and every executive department who met time and time again with our team to make sure that we were pointing them in the best direction forward. And we're very happy with the result. Following the comprehensive workforce development plan budget meetings. Changes to personnel would take effect in 2022, were identified and included in the submission of the proposed executive budget. Long-term changes, as I noted, are planned for subsequent years. Now I'll try to highlight some of the key components of the plan. The first is the salary adjustments beyond 2% for department heads and their deputies. Frankly, I'll just say right off the first comment I want to make in regards to this particular goal. These adjustments are an investment in our highly skilled staff. It's a focus that's surrounding these adjustments, which make the positions competitive to both retain our talent and to recruit should we have a vacancy. On the recruitment side of the house, we have struggled as a county as of late to find qualified individuals to accept employment in the county in some of these key positions. A few examples: the deputy of management and budget, or deputy of crime victims, an epidemiologist in DOH, a paralegal in our law department, a staff attorney and immigration assistance. Additionally, there have been a few different departments that have sought waivers from this very body in order to hire residency waivers. Our health, nursing home, mental health, CYF, and public defender, to name a few. So how did we come up with the salary structure? We conducted salary comparisons with other counties in the capital region, as well as with other counties similarly situated in population size. We used a tiered salary structure, which had been utilized by other departments in previous years. And I think that this body is very, very familiar with some of those professional service departments that have restructured their departments in a tiered manner. The factors that we use in that tiered salary structure: educational requirements to hold the position, the number of employees in the department, the size of their budget, a determination in reviewing what impact and oversight that particular position has over financial responsibility for the county. There are 45 individuals that we made adjustments. 9 of them were the straight 2%. Approximately 5 of them, you could say, were just slightly over 2%, and for rounded purposes to get them to a tier were adjusted. And then another 7 between 2.5% to 3%. So approximately 1/2 of those 45 positions are between 2% increases to 3% increases. All of these positions are not employees who work a typical 9 to 5. They're always on call. They always respond to pressing needs of their departments whenever necessary. They answer my calls, emails, texts, and I know they do for many of you, whether it's 9 o'clock at night, it's a holiday, or the weekend. They're always on call. Here's a couple of important factors that I want to bring up in a discussion with these salary adjustments. And all of these proposed adjustments for the staff, none of them are eligible for OT. Per change in the county's rules and regs several years ago, none of them can earn comp time. These proposed salary adjustments are an investment in our highly qualified leadership staff in the county. And I'll say a couple more points. There is also some of these adjustments within the comprehensive workforce plan that some of our separately electeds have taken advantage of as well. And in years past, I know in presenting this budget to you all for 6 years, 4 of which in the county attorney's office, I've heard a lot of conversation about allowing elected officials to manage their respective departments as they seem best fit. And I'm just asking for that same consideration when you review the county executive's budget and these adjustments in salary. The next portion of the plan that I want to talk about is retitling. There's a long list of county titles that needed adjustment and correction to modernize the job titles and specifications used by Albany County to reflect actual duties and responsibilities of the position. 168 titles were identified as differing between munis and budget and civil service. 141 of them have been proposed in this budget to be changed. They've been reviewed by civil service, HR, and management and budget. There's no negative impact to the employee's current civil service status, and all corrections are budget neutral. Due to union and civil service status, some titles may only be corrected after the incumbent leaves county employment. The next piece of the comprehensive workforce plan is longevity. So I would ask a question no one has to answer, but when are the last time Albany County has addressed longevity? And the answer is 1986. And I have here the rules and regs from Albany County, January 1 of 1986. And if you go to page 32 of the 31 of the 32-page document, there's an article of longevity pay. And on the last page, page 32, there's a chart of longevity pay. That chart is the same exact chart that we have 35 years later. This needs to be addressed. The purpose behind the adjustment was to target retention of our middle and our longer-term employees. And when I say middle and longer term, I'm talking about years of service with the county. We had sent over, I believe, to you a proposed new chart of what that new scale would look like for longevity pay. And this is another piece in which the county just has neglected for a number of years to review. We picked up on it in this plan. It's something that I would strongly consider the legislator to adjust, and it certainly goes towards our pay equity. Finally, I want to talk about health insurance. Our proposed increase in levels of coverage for hearing, dental, and vision are for our non-union workforce. They focus on health equity. The plan changes have a focus on preventative care. Employees are foregoing prevention care to appointments to offset the cost for things such as glasses or dental work. This needs to stop. Our employees shouldn't have to choose between a preventative dental or eye appointment or be able to provide essential items for their families. There are two positives. One is more important, I think, than the other. The first and more important is that we will have improved health outcomes for our employees and their families. The second is long-term health savings, which is nothing to push under the carpet. Savings, we have a fiscal responsibility for all the taxpayers in the county. But our focus in this budget has been to take care of our employees, our staff, our key pieces to how government works, and their families. And these are efforts that are put into place into this proposed budget that addresses those very things. So that is a quick review of the comprehensive workforce development plan. I will at this time defer to you, Madam Chair, for any questions that you may have concerning the overall budget, the executive office budget, or the plan itself. Thank you.
All right, I do see hands going up. But I'm going to start with a question, and then I will acknowledge the members. In the development of the comprehensive workforce plan, were there any consultations with outside industry experts, specifically in the area of compensation levels, work specifications, and cost benefit analysis?
So as far as outside of the county, the answer is no. However, I will tell you that we have a commissioner of human resources that has been with the county for over 20 years, who guided us in part of those discussions. We also have a director of employee relations, former director of employee relations, current director of employee relations that has ongoing conversations with GOER in the state. And we did this comparison through other county contacts that we have in the capital region, as well as other similarly situated counties by size, to gather the information that we felt was necessary to move this forward.
All right, thank you. Ms. McLaughlin, you had your hand up first. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Grimm.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, appreciate it. Dan, thanks for coming in tonight.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that too. I want to talk more about this workforce development. because it seems to me this has really been a mechanism for raising salaries beyond 2%. By my count, over 100 employees are getting raises by beyond 2%. So it's because we talk about equity. Equity is just a term for fairness, but fairness needs to apply to the taxpayers as well. So that's the concern I want to raise here. For example, basically, there should be an objective reevaluation of a lot of the county lines that exist. To say some of those lines deserve more, but it seems to me some of those lines would deserve less if it's really an objective appraisal. Is there a single circumstance where a line was paid less, or is this all salaries increases?
I'm not aware of one less. However, there was a lot of discussion with each individual department about the consolidation of certain positions. So during the course of the review, we had learned, we threw this on the department heads themselves. What do you best need within your department to move forward? So there was consolidation of jobs, most of them lower level jobs, to increase salary for middle level opportunities within the structure. So you have a consolidation of positions, which then helps offset some of those increases that you talk about, Mr. Grip. So it's a platform or a ladder, so to speak, within a department to continue up that ladder that currently didn't exist.
Well, see, I hear the term consolidation and streamlining, and I'm confused by it because we're not streamlining. We're adding 10 more employees to the overall county workforce, and our salary costs are going up $9.6 million, salary and FICA that goes with the salary. So that's not streamlining. Can you explain to me why that is streamlining?
Sure. And if you look at the executive departments, Mr. Grimm, over the last several years, the number of employees have drastically gone down year after year. There is an increase, however, which you are referring to. There's an increase. And one of the reasons behind those increases are from state grants. We are adding positions within, our public defender's office, our alternate public defender's office through 100% state funded positions. When you look at county share positions, they're going in a positive direction, and positive meaning a decrease. So that's the direction, that's the streamlining that we're talking about. Less county funded positions, more state funded positions into the budget.
You listed, you put out the workforce development you shared with us this afternoon. I read it over. There's a couple questions I have. You said funds from eliminated positions will be used to increase other lines that will be retitled, and funds from eliminated positions may also be used to increase training or education, contract out non-union work, and purchase software. Is there any thought to, when you eliminate a line, to actually save the county money? It seems to me, is it automatically considered, if you're eliminating a line, that you're going to just spend it somewhere else? Because, we hear the term budget neutral. That's not budget neutral. When you're not spending any money on a vacant line, and then you spend money by transferring that money somewhere else, that's not the same thing as budget neutral. Is there any intention to save money from eliminating lines?
So I think we have a difference of opinion, because what we are saving, we're reinvesting in our employees, and that hasn't existed. We want to provide opportunities that haven't existed in the past for them to move up within their respective departments. We're in ongoing discussion, just an example, we're in ongoing discussions with a local college to find a way in which we can connect individuals that are coming into the county workforce at lower paying jobs and receive the proper education and necessary education to make advancements within their career. So I understand what you're asking. Is there going to be a cut? We're looking at keeping it status quo at the moment, but with reinvestment in opportunities for our current staff. Staff is hard to get right now. Qualified staff is hard to recruit. And this is not just an Albany County thing. This is a state thing. This is a national thing. You could turn on the national news every single night of the week and find out that their labor has changed. There's not the same desire for whatever reasons. There's a multitude of different rationales for that. But finding qualified individuals to do certain jobs is very difficult. So again, that savings that we're taking from the elimination of certain positions, it's a reinvestment in opportunities and training up our current staff.
How do you explain, because the point here from the executive is, we had some good sales tax returns this year, which has come in well above 2019 level, but we can't be sure about next year. which I understand, that's a reasonable point. But at the same time, we're raising spending by nearly 5%. Isn't that a contradiction to raise spending by nearly 5% at a time when you ought to be cautious about what expectations are for next year?
Again, if there's natural growth, I mean, I don't know, I'll defer to you, Dave, on that
So,
one.
yeah, Mr. Grimm, to the point, and I've even answered some questions offline with you on this. A lot of that increase is due to one piece of that was a change of accounting, but the bigger piece is increased grants. Between the ILS grants that we've received, the DA's office has received an $800,000 grant directly for positions this year. A lot of that 5 million is not an increase on the taxpayers, on the tax burden of the county taxpayers. We're, I believe, what, the 9th lowest tax base, either 7th or 9th, I can't remember off the top of my head, in New York State. There are counties that have multiples of what our tax base is, or our tax percentages.
I'll just say that I don't think any of the salary bumps, some of these are pretty substantial, are due to grant money. I don't think that's the case. All right.
Mr. Grimm, I'll just add this too. I mean, the rate of inflation, I believe, is 5%. And we have consistently, and with you all, your partnership have been able to provide cost of livings for the last 10 plus years or so. And we're very grateful for that. But to recruit and I think just as important to retain, this needs to be looked at. We're losing qualified, good, trained up staff to go to another public agency. That's the reality of what's happening. And I know that you've sat through a bunch of different presentations through a lot of our departments, and they will tell you that same story. We're losing talented workforce.
Well,
and we can't afford to do it anymore.
Can I just say one, can I please interject? Okay. I promise I'll get back to you, Mr. Grimm.
Okay.
You have 3 colleagues that have their hands up. And,
Okay.
And so I'm just going to move on to Mr. O'Brien now.
Okay.
And, but I promise I'll come back to you, okay?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
All right. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lynch, about 2 weeks ago, I spoke about the Board of Elections. They have had some issues with security and other issues down there.
Serious? Come on.
Hello?
Excuse me.
And they were promised some security enhancement, and they have not received them. And Mr. Riley noted that that they were in the works. So I just wanted to make sure that we are going to help Board of Elections down there with some security issues.
Mr. O'Brien, I know that it's been a conversation that's been ongoing for the better part of a year. I know of the task force report. I'm well aware of all of this. What was reported back to me seems like miscommunication. And I will happily, I don't know if this is the forum, I will happily meet with anyone who would like to as early as tomorrow morning to discuss this. It's something that the county executive and I are well aware of, and will helpfully assist in the process and the undertaking that has resulted from that report.
As you know, there was a task force appointed by the chairman of the legislature to address these, and this is what they've come up with, some of these. So I hope that you have that report. And,
I do. I've reviewed it. I'm well aware of it. I've actually participated in meetings to discuss it with certain members of that task force probably a year ago. So again, I don't know if this is the proper forum to unpack a lot of those conversations, but I'm certainly happy to meet with you and any other members of the task force to discuss a plan forward.
I'm not on the task force. It was just brought to my attention by by the commissioners during our budget hearing. So I just wanted to follow up with it.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. I just want to remind everyone, please keep yourself muted. Your comments can be heard by all those that are on this meeting, please. Let's be respectful of all of the speakers. Ms. McLaughlin, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I just, Mr. Lynch, I'm going to follow up just a bit on what Mr. O'Brien stated with the Board of Elections issue. I guess the reason this is being talked about as a budget item is because as a member of that task force, I was led to believe that in the budget going forward, that there may be some items included in the budget, particularly to address capital improvements that might be utilized to help address some of the security matters that are of concern at the Board of Elections. None of that is there at this point. So again, I will defer to our offline conversation about that, but that was something that I expected to see in the budget for the coming year that would help address the concerns that the employees had there. But like, as you stated, it's not there, so we can deal with that in another conversation. Another issue I wanted to bring up, as it relates to all these changes that have been contemplated through the workforce development plan, I would hope that, or I'm asking, were there any issues or considerations given regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of how these raises were doled out and how they are distributed throughout the county? So I do have some concern about that. And I know that a lot of organizations throughout the country and in the capital region have taken upon the issue of diversity, taken the opportunity to do that in their budgets going forward. So was any of that addressed in our budget? And if so, can you let me know specifically? I'm going to say all this and then I'm just going to wait for an answer. Then this one other, maybe probably a simpler question. You talked about there are 141 titles have been proposed for corrective retitling. Do you know how many positions that equates to? 141 titles, how many positions does that equate to? And then the final question, also you talk about that the plan is to create a data coordinator position that will be housed in some key departments. Key departments. What are those departments? And will they be shared by other departments? Other departments will have access to them, or will it just be whatever those quote unquote key departments? Could you, I know I said a lot and I hope you can remember what I said.
So having some training in this, that would be what's called a compound question. So let me try to unpack some of those and answer for you. First, in regards to the number of positions, I'll have to get back to you on that. The comprehensive workforce plan was reviewed through the equity lens. Okay, that's very important because we have the equity agenda within the county government that we've been working on for the last several years. The comprehensive workforce plan is a tentpole of the equity agenda, right? So how do we bring medical coverage equity? How do we bring pay equity? The longevity, as I talked before, is another step of the pay equity. How do we provide training and educational opportunities? So all of that is encompassed with the idea. I want to say that at this stage, these adjustments are for 1/3 of our workforce, that being our non-union workforce. You all know that we have 19 different bargaining units, and 16 of them are up at the end of the day or at the end of the year. So we have a lot of work to do. Those conversations have been ongoing with union leadership. So we're hope to have something in the early part of 22. So specific positions, I think the county executive, I'll speak for the county executive of this, and being part of his administration, I feel the same. We take a lot of pride in the diversity that we have amongst our department heads and our deputies. So it was always, a look at through the comprehensive workforce plan as a whole through the lens of how do we provide equity amongst the different departments. You had another question, and I'm not answering the final piece. Just remind me real quick, if you would, what that last question was.
I asked about the departments where the IT adjustments will be made.
Oh, yes.
And
So,
the key
sorry to interrupt.
departments. What does that mean?
So I believe it was if we're talking about the same thing, last month, we had submitted an RLA, which was passed by the full body of the creation of a new data analytics position. This is something that Madam Chairwoman and others had discussed with our office several months ago with some other elected officials. And the whole reason behind the creation of that position is to take a deep dive into the programmatic side of the house. And are the contracts that we have with the entities that we have them with, are they actually working? Are they providing results? It's a result-oriented type of position. So it's going to be working with all of our departments. All of our departments have outside contracts with vendors. There hasn't been a overhaul or a look or a audit of sort of any of them in a long, long time. This position is going to is going to be that so-called auditor to take a deeper dive into what we're doing as a county. Are the programs that we have in place actually working? Or do we just renew them year after year after year? So we're excited about that. It's already been passed by this body. In future fiscal years, there may be a reason to expand, but we're starting off slow with one key position. We're going to see what that individual can accomplish and what they can produce, and then we'll move from there. But that's an exciting creation within the 2021 budget, and certainly we'll review as we move forward here in future years.
Can I enter one point?
Yeah.
So just to one of your earlier points, Ms. McLaughlin, the number of positions that we're referring to, those on the handout, you'll see they're all specific position control numbers, as we call them. So that is the exact number of employees as well. Each one of those lines is one person. So that person is changing from the 2021 budget title to the new budget title, the next column over.
You're still muted, Ms. McLaughlin.
can't hear
Okay, I have it now. So you said 1/3, I think, of the positions, 1/3 of the county positions are being affected by this.
No, 137, I believe, 140, something like that is the exact number on here. Those
No,
are the
140.
1-for-1 title
Okay,
changes.
so it's 1-for-1, 141 titles.
Yes.
So that there aren't like 3 people in one title or 4 people in one title, that kind of thing.
Each one gets their own line. You do see some that are multiple lines for the same original title, but each line is one individual person.
Oh, okay. So 141 equals 141.
Yes.
And then this is my final point or question. You did say that some of these titles, are they're union. These people are, as you noted, there's 16 or 19 unions.
Mm-hmm.
You might have said more than that, I can't remember. So I assume that you've had conversations with them, the unions, about this retitling. And as you stated, a lot of contracts are coming up in the next year. Did they voice any concerns about this? And do they feel that the equity that's going to be established in terms of the longevity issue is going to be across the board as well?
So right now it's for non-union. All of this can only be done through the non-union workforce at this stage, but certainly there will be ongoing negotiations with the respective collective bargaining agreements. So what is being proposed in the 2022 budget is these adjustments for salaries and longevity and the medical, the vision, dental plans are for non-union staff at this point. Some of them within some of the union bargaining units already have these very things in them.
Okay.
And is now bringing the non-union employees up to some of what has been collectively bargained for in years past.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Chair, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much. Mr. Simpson, you're next, and then Ms. Cunningham. You will be after Mr. Simpson. Thank you.
Yes, yes. And back in 2019, when Deputy Executive Director Phil Calderon announced an equity agenda, I was very excited. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first,
Sorry, go ahead.
to the best of my knowledge, this is the first I'm hearing more about the equity agenda since the 2019 budget presentation. But I have to confess some confusion. You know, I'm the former Chief Diversity Officer for New York State. And so when I hear equity agenda, I think the bringing on in official administrator and professional position, protected classes, people of color and women. And from what I hear you saying, there are a number of salary increases, but I don't see that that correlates to bringing in a more diversified workforce. So I'm a little confused and maybe I'm missing something. But when you talk about equity agenda, are you just talking about an equitable redistribution of money among the existing workforce? Because my definition of equity would include more diversifying people, particularly at the decision-making levels. So rescue me if I'm lost.
No, I think you're hitting it on. And we do have it in the county from years past, the hiring of an equity agenda coordinator who has been working throughout the different departments and coming up with goals and initiatives and review of how the progress that's being made. Be happy to share with you the results that individual has made over the last several years under the, once she started within the county. So I don't think you're wrong. I know that the county executive and our staff and policy analysts continue to lobby state civil service to make adjustments to provide other opportunities. We're constantly looking for ways in which to achieve. So it's not just the reallocation of funds, Mr. Simpson. It's finding ways of breaking down what could be barriers for people to even enter employment within the county.
But I mean, what have we done to increase the diversity of people at the top decision-making positions in our agencies? I mean, go ahead.
No. I mean, well, the positions are, and again, I will could defer here to the economic or the equity agenda coordinator to answer any specific questions. But there's generally not a lot of turnover when it comes to the top positions within our county government. However, we have, I think, in speaking to Mr. Riley here, the deputy position at the Department of Management and Budget has really encompassed an all-out recruiting process that has expanded 3 states. We're unable to hire someone. And that again, I feel like, to kind of pivot from your question here, that's the need here to make these positions attractive for someone to leave their current position and start working in Albany County.
Could you quickly though speak to like maybe the top 5, high level appointments, even at the deputy or the sub-deputy level in our county agencies? I mean, we lost Gail Groenwegen at Children and Youth, but who have we brought on since then?
Bakri Jenna, Thomas DeBose, and I mean, I could get you a list. I mean, these are questions, Mr. Simpson, that quite frankly, in regards to preparation for the budget discussion this evening, I'll happily be able to get you information of other individuals that we've put in those positions and share it with you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you, Wanda, and thank you for this presentation. So I guess I would my comments are essentially going to be focused on that. I think this is great. If we are not Albany County instituting a real proactive plan that focuses on recruitment and retention of our workers, we would be completely negligent. This looks like a really good plan, and I compliment you, Dan, and County Exec McCoy for launching this. It looks like it has all the elements of what you want to see. Things like, looking at job titles. I mean, those are things that are important because that's a value add for an employee. that's outside of compensation or benefits, but really, really important stuff. And in case anyone's missed it, the job market is pretty intense right now. And many sectors, I work in the healthcare sector and spend a lot of time on workforce policy because employees are moving across different sectors right now, at least in the healthcare system. And all of the traditional tools of benefits and salaries, you have to have much more than that. So what I see here is a much more kind of dynamic approach, looking at redundancies in staffing, looking at departments that are concerned about staffing that's not adequate to meet the needs, being flexible enough to think about how you modify titles. I mean, all of that is forward-thinking things. So we should be glad to see that the executive, and Dan, it sounds like you're really entrenched in this, is working on this. I guess the one thing that I would ask, and I sort of saw hints of it in the workforce development plan, but assume that this is kind of the beginning of a multi-year dynamic process, because all of these workforce issues that we're seeing in the job market right now, I don't think are going to go away anytime soon. And it may become more intense. So just wondered, it's a quick question, but assume you guys are looking at, and I saw some hints of it in there, a multi-year approach that kind of gets you to goal. But mostly I just want to say, I think this is great.
Well, thank you, Ms. Cunningham, for the support and kind words. And yes, it is a multi-year approach. One quick example of living through the pandemic as an employee for the county, and certainly one with enough in the administration to see the day in and day out of how we were so behind the real world as a county government when it came to efficiencies and being able to respond in a timely manner to our residents. If there's a positive out of a very grim time of the last 20 months, it's that we're forced to move ahead, and we move light years ahead. We probably move 10 years ahead in the matter of a year and a half when it comes to simple things like technology. And that continues to evolve, and it has been introduced in many of our departments now, and has created, some key, phrases that we talked about before, the streamlining of services for our residents, and has created efficiencies. And having our department heads tell us, hey, this is working, let's keep on going down this path, excites us, because we're not going to ever go backwards. The way in which we delivered our services to our residents are done. We had a gold standard back then, and it's only going to go bigger and better. And the introductions of qualified, our introduction of technology as one example, and training up and providing education and opportunities for a dedicated workforce is going to make the delivery of those services even more rewarding and beneficial for our residents.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm glad you're looking at kind of the lessons learned of COVID. I mean, I think the county did an amazing job on so many fronts when we had to go all virtual so quickly. But I think you're on a great path, and just thank you for putting this together.
Thank you.
Wanda,
I had a remark.
Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Ms. Lakakis?
I guess both Mert and Joanne and Carolyn and probably everybody who spoke touched on the things that I was thinking about. But my key thing was, I'm delighted that you are doing this workforce development thing. And in the nonprofit sector, it's not something that you do every 10 years. There's nothing in the nonprofit sector that I've ever found that's from 1986. It's got to be continuous, and it's got to be extensive, and it's got to, include everyone all the time. So I'm glad that you're talking about extending it and continuing it, because I think there's a lot of things in our process, like the evaluation of old buildings, say, and people that we really should be revisiting on a more regular basis. And since we're not only asking budget questions, I just want to throw out that when you're ready to talk about the BOE, I'm happy to be there. Thank you.
Ms. Lakakis, I'm available tomorrow morning if you'd like.
I'll call you.
All right.
Thank you, Lynn. Mr. Epicoro.
So it seems thank you very much, Madam Chairman. It seems everyone else that just spoke my mind, especially Ms. Joanne Cunningham. Thank you very much for that. And I also want to just thank the county executive and the deputy Dan for all that you have done during this pandemic to keep our residents safe. And also the issue of the longevity raise. This is something that is going to benefit our residents, our Albany County residents, and especially the non-union employees. Is an issue of fairness and equity. And I want to thank you for that. And hopefully we see this as something that is positive and going to improve our workforce in Albany. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on just up to an hour now with the on the county executive's budget. Are there any more questions from anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Okay, Mr. Grimm, I'm just going to ask that you remember we have 6 more departments, please.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's just, you asked that we hold all our questions until the deputy county executive came in on the department. So there's a lot of them. But thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay, one more question.
Okay, Dan Lynch, is he still here? All right, yeah, Dan?
I'm here, yes.
Human Resources Department caught my eye. 8 new positions are being created, the 3 are being cut. So you're adding 5 new positions to an organization that has 20, you're going from 20 to 25, and it's increasing salaries in that department by 32%. Can you get the rationale for that change?
Yeah, I mean, without having it right in front of me to look at the positions created, those were strategically placed. I mean, again, if you're shining a light on certain departments that really went above and beyond and were completely and utterly understaffed during a crisis that we are still in, HR comes to mind. You have a hardworking staff there, but they need support. And it's, what they do touches every single one of our departments, touches every single one of our elected offices, and moving forward without the proper resources for that department is just negligent. And we addressed it, and we addressed it in a smart and strategic way. I think the Commissioner of Human Resources is beyond happy with the proposed executive budget, because for once she feels that she's being supported and can adequately and not adequately, but perform her functions and do so in a very time-friendly way. And again, that's a position that is a thankless position. That's a department that gets overlooked on how key they are to moving the county forward, for whether it's the elected offices or the executive departments.
Well, I just say all our departments are hardworking. I just leave it at that. Thank you.
And I'm never, Mr. Grimm, if you interpreted it that way, that is not my intent at all. I have more respect for our county government right now, sitting here 20 months into this pandemic, than I would have ever imagined for. And I hope that they understand that they will always have the support of the executive body, the executive department, and the executive to the county executive. They are a proud bunch, a hardworking bunch, and I would never slate any one of them.
Yeah, but my point was that, they're not getting the increases that HR is getting. That was my point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grimm. I want to thank you, Mr. Lynch, for your presentation. I want to thank you for your response to the questions of the members. And if anyone had questions that were not answered tonight, I'm sure that they will follow up with you. And again, we do appreciate the service of the executive department, and thank you and good evening to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, we are now going to move on to the county clerk. For those of you who are following along in the budget book, It starts on page 225, and I do believe that Mr. Hidley is present.
That's correct, Madam Chairwoman.
All right. You may
Madam
start.
Chairwoman and distinguished members of the Audit and Finance Committee, I want to thank you for this opportunity to present my 2022 budget for the Albany County Clerk's Office, A1410, and the Albany County Hall Records, A1411. I'd like to talk a little bit about the growth and efforts made by the Albany County Clerk's Office and the Albany County Hall Records, and the increased responsibility and workload that I've given the executive deputy county clerk and the deputy county clerk from the Albany County Hall Records, which on item number 4 I addressed in the letter to our Honorable Wanda Willingham and to the legislature. As you all know, I have given a lot of time and effort to the technological advancements in both of these offices during my term. I have implemented both e-filing for the electronic filings of court records and e-recording for the electronic recording of land records. When the pandemic hit, both of these proved instrumental in keeping the office open for all essential filings and recordings, while other offices across the state had to close. We were able to maintain the office, appease the attorneys, our title searchers, and the general public by allowing them to file and record from home. This was crucial due to the increase of refinancing and land sales that continue to grow in Albany County. Our office continued to add deeds and mortgages to our online search, as well as allowing people to get copies of their documents from home. Our staff was protected and the workflow never decreased due to the advanced technology in both of these offices. Revenue continued to generate with increases in both 2020 and in 2021 this year. We have also implemented a new FOIL system, which works through a portal linked to our website, allowing FOIL requests to be done during the pandemic. The Albany County Clerk's Office is predicting for 2021 a nearly 15% increase in revenue from 2020 to 2021. And that again relates to the refinancing of new home sales in Albany County. As for the Hall records, we will be implementing a new content records management system, which the county legislature I have worked hand in hand with and has been kind enough to help me out with this endeavor, in early December 2021, which is only 1 month away. This new content records management system will streamline the way agencies in the county and the city of Albany request their documents. And as all of you know, we are a joint records management program between the county of Albany and the city of Albany. We have also had several records management grants that have allowed us shared services with local agencies to scan and digitize older documents, preserving the records and allowing better access to those records. And those agencies include 2 in the city of Albany and 1 with the town of Colony. During these trying times, I have relied on Deputy County Executive Geraldine Gould, whom oversees both the County Clerk's Office and ACOR, and Deputy County Clerk Greg Carlson of the Hall Records, to recreate workflows, which will allow the staff to stay home in accordance with the only essential employees work directive that was issued to all of us. They made sure the public was serviced and revenue continued to be collected. Jerry and Craig continue to come into the office with myself to oversee all the mailing requests that could not be done online. And protocols have changed over the last 18 months. And with their leadership, these 2 offices have never skipped a beat as far as our dedication to serving the people and the agencies of Albany County. First and foremost, the safety of our staff and the public always came first. So as I noted earlier, item number 4 relates to increases to both the executive deputy county clerk and to the deputy county clerk in the Hall of Records. Now, the proposed increases that you're going to see in the executive budget for 2022, I have discussed with the Division of Management and Budget, and we have settled on, and it will be in the list of corrections from the Division of Management and Budget. So I am respectfully requesting your consideration to both these salary increases, which also kind of, after listening to the presentation by our executive deputy county clerk or deputy county executive, also works hand in hand with that comprehensive workforce development plan. So, you know, I have two very professional staff members here who run those departments, who do a dynamic, outstanding job. And I feel that they deserve more money than they're getting. They really are, they're doing a dynamic job. I can't ask anything I ask for them. And once again, they come in here on their off time and they're not paid. They come in here on weekends when I ask them to get things done, and they are not paid. They worked very hard during the pandemic. Every single day they were here, both of them. And that's why I put in item number 4 for some increases into their salary. I hope you really consider it. They're deserving of those salaries. And I'd also like to note in the budget for 2022 that the CSEA Local 801, which represents the union employees, their contract expires with my offices on December 31st of 2021. And their contracts, I believe, will be under negotiation within the next couple of months. And so those salary increases are also not in the 2020 budget, as I have noted. Now, the only other request for a salary increase I put in the budget for 2022 was my own. As all of you know, I can only ask once, and that's during an election year, which is this year. I've worked with management and budget again and factored the same request from the county executive and that the Albany County Sheriff asked for from 2 years ago. You'll see that there are no other changes to this year's budget that I am requesting. And I certainly want to thank the Audit and Finance Committee for their hard work and dedication and what you do to make this 2022 budget happen in Albany County. So now I entertain any questions.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
Thank you, Madam
I
Chairwoman.
appreciate your presentation. I do see that Mr. Grimm has his hand up, so I'll move to him right after I just asked this one question. Okay, in your agency budget narrative on page 225, you described the need for a new position in the court records unit and hall of records. Does your budget contain a request for one? Then how would this new position function?
Well, Craig is a one-man show at the Albany County Hall of Records. And when Craig is out, that leaves me with absolutely no supervision at all at the Hall of Records. Actually, Jerry has to maintain that supervision as the executive deputy county clerk here at the county clerk's office. So, I was hoping that could be reality, but it's not a priority, Madam Chairwoman, but it is a request that hopefully we can work on someday down the line.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Mr. Grimm?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Good to see you again, Bruce. And I appreciate just mentioning your own pay raise, being straightforward. I appreciate it, particularly since this is a once out of 4 year thing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
It seems to me you're increasing your documents and increasing your online presence.
Yes.
More so than any kind of other agency. I guess the clerk's office would be like that. And I wonder about internet security and all that jazz. Are those demands higher for you folks? And what's your concerns in that area? And what are you doing to prevent some of this mischief that's out there?
Well, obviously, that's a very good question. And you're right. As we move along in the county clerk's office with technology, it's very obvious that any cybersecurity and all that stuff is extremely important to us. We do now have we have one individual at the Hall of Records who acts as
Electronics records.
She's our electronics records manager, and she works hand in hand with Perry Blanchard, our IT director for Albany County, and they keep a close thumb on everything that's going on as far as electronics management. Which you're right. We every year we get more documents online. Every year we get more requests online, and every year we're doing more and more with the technological advancements, and that's a good thing for the public. And it certainly has helped us out. Now, Perry and my electronic records manager is doing a great job. We haven't had any problem with that, thank the good Lord. We have not realized any security breaches with any of our equipment or any of our technological advancements. We're very happy about that. Certainly, if something does happen, it will raise a red flag, and we will be right on top of that immediately to address whatever needs that has to be done to take care of that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we're IQS and at the county clerk's office, Info Quick Solutions, who's our vendor for our system. They're updating their system all the time here with as far as the records in our office. And anytime there's a problem, IQS is right there for us.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Ms. McLean Lane.
Thank you for recognizing me, Madam Chairwoman. I wanted to say to Mr. Hidley that I have had multiple, as you know, interactions with your office over the past 2 years. And one thing I've always been impressed by is that your employees, even from home, there is no question about the fact that they are extraordinarily responsive. I don't think I've waited more than 15 to 20 minutes for a callback. And I've actually called about some pretty significant issues, as you well know, in the village with some of these retail properties down on Broadway and sort of the transactions that are happening, et cetera. So I am very ready and willing to support your budget as you see fit, because I regularly utilize also your online capabilities. I probably download from the deeds, records, etc. I would say at least once a week. So thank you very much. It's a job well done. I have every support in your department, and keep up the great work, because these people don't even know that I'm an Albany County legislator when I call. They just help me out. And the response has been pretty incredible. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Legislator McLean. And service is the #1 priority in this office. And Jerry Gould works hand in hand with all of the staff here. And the #1 priority is to take care of the public. And I'm glad you brought that point up, that people don't know you're an Albany County legislator and you get the same service as anybody else would. That's the general public. And I thank you for bringing that up. And I thank you for the compliment, because it means a lot. And I will tell you one thing. Tomorrow, I will pass along that comment to the staff myself personally, to let them know how one of the legislators feel.
Thank you very much. I just want to remind the members, if you have any additional questions, you can send an email to legbudget@albanycountyny.gov. Thank you, Mr. Hidley, for your presentation and for answering the questions. I appreciate you very much, and I will bid you good evening.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and to the members of the Audit and Finance Committee. Thank you very much. And if I don't see all of you, have a great Thanksgiving and a great holiday season.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to the DA, District Attorney. That's found on page 231 in your budget book. And Mr. Soares.
Madam Chair, thank you so much. I promise that I will be brief, but also to the extent that we can be engaging. First and foremost, I'd like to define the problem that we're experiencing right now in terms of the greatest public safety threat that we have in Albany County. Illegal guns in the hands of criminals and irresponsible youth is posing the greatest threat to public safety in our county in the moment. In communities like Albany, we're experiencing more shootings, we're finding more shell casings, we're seeing more bodies, some of intended targets and some of innocent bystanders. And with every shot fired from an illegal gun, we are also witnessing the confidence of an already vulnerable community shaken and destroyed. Now, the difference today is in New York. We're still adjusting to the new, mostly good, certainly well-meaning reforms that both police and prosecutors are finding out is now making it harder for us to fight this wave of violence. If we do nothing, then this insufferable condition will be the new norm. And let me remind you that when I use the term norm, that reference is not going to be applicable to you and me, because the violence, the frequency of violence and the volume of the violence, it seems to be predominantly in these vulnerable communities and are impacting our vulnerable communities. First and foremost, I want to thank the county executive and his staff for their review and work on our budget request. While we were able to arrive at agreements on some issues, we were not able to come to terms in others. There are critical needs that remain, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to discuss some of those needs. Well, I want to just draw your attention back to 2019 when I appeared before this body and warned of the impact of these reforms. To be quite frank, I felt a little bit like Peter, a little boy in the village who cried wolf. And I also felt like Chicken Little, forecasting the falling of the sky. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with the numbers that we have right now in our community, that sky has fallen and those wolves are at our door. In the city of Albany alone, there have been 191 confirmed shots fired incidents as of November 2nd, 2021. Of the 191 confirmed shots fired, 60 were shooting incidents resulting in 86 people hit, with 14 fatalities. But for the access of emergency services and skilled medical practitioners in the Capital District, our numbers of fatalities could be much, much higher. The budget that we've crafted and the budget that we've presented here is designed to address this crisis. But it's also designed to address the challenges that we envision in 2022. And I will just suggest to you that for the purposes of simplicity and brevity, they fall within three baskets. Caseloads. We have a caseload now that we are carrying in this office that is almost unsustainable. And therefore, we're in need of additional prosecutors to not only address the volume, but also to reduce the caseload on other fellow prosecutors who are already, I would just say, a taxed staff. We're also searching for more experience because our cases are much more complex. We need to attract more experienced prosecutors that come in and take over the inventory of violence that we currently have in Albany County. And we also need supervision. Our local court practice, as a result of discovery reform, our local court practice is no longer a part-time practice. We are in need of bodies that will be in those courts, providing the best level of services to the smaller communities in Albany County. And therefore, we will need greater supervision of those local courts. And so with that, just want to say that throughout the very beginning of this, in 2019, when we came before this body and we professed our concerns, you were there for us in 2020. You continue to be there for us. And I now take your question, all of your questions regarding our proposal. And I'm confident that you will be there for us again in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Soares, good to see you again.
Nice to see you, sir.
Just to go from your memo that you sent the committee, item 3, you identify 6 new positions and you state they're grant funded. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Yes, the challenges that we articulated back in 2019 have, the chickens have come home to roost. The difference being prior to 2019 and the reforms, only a small percentage of cases that we would actually have to conduct full discovery. Now we're required to provide discovery in 100% of the cases. Therefore, we need more bodies to achieve that goal. The state also saw that need as well, and they provided grant funding for Albany County to be administered by the county executive's office. And that money was designed to go towards the discovery practice that we now must be engaged in. So those are the bodies that will be paid for as a result of that grant.
So state money for a state mandate, one more state mandate. But what happens?
It doesn't happen often, but yes, there is a miracle, a small miracle.
I mean, but what happens if they pull the money though? You'd still need the employees, wouldn't you?
We would still need the employees. The discovery mandates are here to stay. And I would imagine that it's going to be up to the state to continue to fund for those positions like they do with other specialized cases that they ask us to engage in. Like, for example, the motor vehicle crimes and crimes against revenue program. So I anticipate that they will continue to fund for this position since it's their mandate.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grimm. I have one question for you, Mr. Soares.
Yes.
So your department has restructured, various positions, over the last few years, okay?
Yes.
And I've noticed as chair, even this year, okay? So I heard you talk about, the additional staff. So do you feel a little bit more confident maybe that you now have the staffing structure to accomplish the present mandates of your office?
I feel that this is going to go a long way in doing that. And let me just briefly, because I understand there's other electeds after me, and you certainly have demonstrated a lot of courage in today's and being able to deal with all of us. But what is dangerous for purposes of our cases is when a prosecutor who's handling a lot of serious offenses is handling more than cases between numbers 45 and 50. And we currently have prosecutors in this office that have caseloads in the numbers of 80 and plus. And so what we need in this office are more prosecutors for the reasons that I previously stated. The more prosecutors that we're able to have, we can bring those caseloads back to a manageable level and really be able to deliver on the justice that we've sought. I will note, because you did mention it and you're very observant, when I originally came before this body back in 2019, I believe I asked somewhere in the neighborhood of about 16 new people. And I will just say that that was a bit prophetic because over the course of 2019, 2020, and here we are, 2021 and into 2022, we will be right at about that number that we had originally forecasted back in 2019. So I do think that we will be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Soares. I see that Mr. Efitoro has his hand up. I'm going to recognize him right now.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you very much, David, for your presentation. I just want to thank you also for helping to fight crime in Albany County, and also to let you know that I do stand with you on your position concerning the New York State bail reform. And but until some changes are at least made with regards to the New York State bail reform, I believe Albany County has to do what we have to do to protect our citizens. And I believe your requests are your requests are appropriate for the things that we are seeing currently in Albany. And I hope that all of my colleagues will go ahead in support of your requests tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate it on behalf. It's not just this office, there's members of law enforcement all in this community, all trying to do this. But I really thank you. Your words are very meaningful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It looks like I don't see Lynn. Is
I do, Madam.
moving? Okay. So after, okay. Let me just remind the members, if you're not going to use the to raise your hand, I can't see you, all of you. Okay,
I'm
so,
sorry, I don't have to.
so
raise your
then
hand.
I'm
I don't
going
have
to,
the ability to do it.
okay, so I'm going to go with Lynn and then I'm going to go with you, Dave. Is that okay?
Okay, beautiful.
Thank you.
I
Ms.
just had a
Vakakis.
quick question. First of all, congratulations on the new member of your family.
Oh, thank you so much.
And then you had talked to us in the past about recruiting and retention. And I just wanted to quickly, maybe a one-sentence answer. How is that going?
It's very difficult. We've lost a number of people. A lot of that has to do with opportunities that are opening up at the state, the Attorney General's office. I'm proud to have a great organization that's a great training ground, but our salaries are not competitive enough with the state to retain that talent.
Thank you. I'm sorry to hear that, but I figured it might be so.
Are you finished, Lynn? Thank you very much. Mr. Mayo.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Willingham. I just had a quick question on page 3 of the fees for services. In 2021, you had requested 308,000 and year to date is actually about 119,000. And I can understand the slowdown in the courts and all, but next year you're requesting $408,000. Is there any explanation for that? If they're 118,000 now and 408 next year?
Yeah, so there's two things that are happening simultaneously. One, again, going back to the reforms that were passed, requiring us to get body cam from law enforcement, also getting law enforcement personnel records. These things require cloud storage. And one of the challenges that we're experiencing right now is just the overwhelming amount of data that we're getting and having to manage. So that's one of the reasons that you're seeing more of a request for that fees for service line. The other thing too is we are currently involved more now with the U.S. Marshals than we've ever have been before, and having the U.S. Marshals that have a global service of finding offenders who have fled the jurisdiction and returning them back. That's one of the areas that we are being taxed on right now. And I'm hoping that our estimation is where it is that we need to be. But those are the two challenges that we currently are experiencing now that we weren't necessarily experiencing last year, and we weren't necessarily experiencing the year before. The state police has just come on to body cam, so we're getting additional material from an agency that in previous years did not have to provide them to us.
Okay, and I guess it's $300,000 more. Who made that estimate, or how was that derived?
The other thing is we're still operating at only one trial happening at a time. And those trials really didn't start again until the middle of the year. So those dollars are mostly used for our trial expenses, for witness travel, which has all been massively decreased. So you can see that we steadily increased until 2019 when we used more than we had budgeted. And then only in 2020 and 2021, when the courts were essentially closed or functioning at much reduced levels, did those dollars decrease. So if the courts are operating at full speed in 2022, I anticipate those costs will go back up, as well as the additional costs that we're looking for that cloud storage and the data management. So, well, any dollars we don't spend this year will go directly back to the county. We don't intend on spending them just because they're there. They're there for our use only in trials and witness protection and witness management. And fortunately, with fewer trials, fewer dollars are spent.
Okay, better to be safe than sorry. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayo. I'm not sure if I see any other hands up, but if it is, let me change my view here. Gallery. Okay, as far as I can see, there are no other hands up. So I just want to thank Mr. Swords for his presentation. I want him also to understand that we do recognize what what his office has been going through over this past year. And we realized that that things are not where we would want them to be as far as the community is concerned. So before I close out and wish him a happy Thanksgiving, I see that Mr. Simpson has his hand up.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mr. Soares, could you just briefly speak to the gap in salary that would need to be filled for you to be able to retain the employees that are leaving?
It's the offers that are being made. AG's office, generally speaking, it's anywhere between $7,000, $12,000. As you know, in this organization, we have a bureau chiefs and some of the top positions that you don't see a lot of change in. But a few years ago, we thought that we addressed that by making adjustments and getting help from this legislative body to achieve that. But we're finding out, sadly, that we're still not able to compete at that level. But what I will do is I will look at some of the exit interview materials that we have, and I'll be able to put something together for you and submit it to the legislature. And in closing, let me just say that we have experienced a tremendous amount of challenges, but we would never have been able to even achieve what we're achieving now without the help of this body, because you've come to our aid every time. And so whatever it is that we are achieving in our court, whatever level of justice, it certainly has the fingerprints of this legislature in it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. And again, to the DA, I want to thank you. And we want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving if we don't get a chance to see you again before the end of November.
Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for shouting out my daughter's name.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we're now going to move on. Is Sheriff Apple?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
All set?
We're all set.
All right, so first of all, thank you. In the interest of brevity, I'll kind of move through this quick. Our budget is up slightly this year, basically due to the contractual raises and the fringe attached to that. Other than that, I think once again, for our 8th or 9th year in a row, we've worked closely with the county executive to kind of pick the bone clean and come in where we need it to be, but still be able to provide a very high level service of public safety. I think it goes without saying that our agency over the last 1.5 to 2 years have really kicked it into gear. We fought through COVID. Our members have to come to work. There was no staying home for our staff. They came in. Our agency was the first in the area and the only in the area to distribute millions of pieces of personal protective equipment, sanitize public and private, sanitize ambulances, police cars, you name it. If there was an outbreak, even in a restaurant, we would go and sanitize it for the mere fact of trying to stop the spread. On top of that, we went ahead and we started a vaccination pod, which was, again, we're the only police department, I think, in the country to run a vaccination pod. And we served thousands of people, including shut-ins, those in the outlying areas that would not normally travel down into a city to get a shot or go get a shot. We served thousands, and we're continuing to do that with another booster clinic tomorrow for Moderna, with a primary focus of our staff, public safety staff throughout the county, firefighters, and of course, any civilians that in fact got Moderna. Moderna was one of the first ones that came out for public safety, but is the last one to come out for everybody. On top of that, we had deputies driving in ambulances, performing all kinds of crazy services, anything they could do to step up to the plate. We had COs that were constantly sanitizing. We had to pretty much restructure how we operate the correctional facility. And I say that by separating COVID positive, quarantine, and in fact, just general population, because we had to keep it out of there. And we kept it out of there for actually 11.5 months. When it came hard. We had about 100 cases at any one given point, and probably 80 staff out at any one given point. But again, they rose to the occasion. Our administrators and civilian staff were performing functions they don't normally perform, but they did it. And I couldn't be more proud of them for that. I do have a couple of things that have popped up over the last couple of days that I have not been able to send out to the legislators. I'd like an opportunity to discuss. I did have a brief conversation with the chairman and indicated I would bring them up. But, and primarily that involves our dispatch. We're handling right now, this past weekend, we handled roughly 270 rollover calls from the city of Albany. 85 of those calls needed to be EMD, which is emergency medical dispatch, which means our dispatcher is taken out of service and goes through a series of questions and handles whether the family or the caller is having a seizure, heart pains, drowning, choking, whatever the case may be. Those calls can be from 2 minutes to 2 hours, but that dispatcher is offline during that time. So it's been extremely busy, and in light of that, and in light of the continuing rolled over calls being roughly over 700 in the last 6 days, I would ask that the legislature give me the authority to hire 2 additional dispatchers, maybe 3 if you could give it to me, with the understanding that as soon as this municipality is back up to speed with dispatchers and I have a retirement or 2 or 3, I could attrit those out. But I think, listen, my primary goal is public safety, and I think it's the right move for us to make. These calls need to be answered. And if you're calling 911 and that phone is ringing 10 times and then rolling over to another agency, that's an eternity to whoever's in pain and suffering on the other end. And that's next to inhumane. So I would ask that you please consider that. And I could forward the appropriate documents over in the morning for the official request. And on top of that, I would like to discuss the addition of possible overtime if the Albany detail continues. As you know, we've been in the city now for over a year. We've made a countless number of arrests. I think we have definitely saved lives. We've taken illegal handguns, loaded illegal handguns off the streets. It's almost become a common fixture to see our black and whites in the city, and they're doing great work. And if it continues, I can't say that I'll be in the position I'm in this year to cover the overtime. This year, right now, I will have enough money to cover the expenditures. We're confident of that because we have so many vacancies. But next year, I don't know if I'll be in that position. With that said, that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Sheriff Alpha. I do see Mr. Grimm's hand up, so I will let him go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Hello, Sheriff. How are you?
Hi, sir. How are you?
Good. Hey, fewer people being put in jail. A lot of course, has to do with the state laws and and all that. But how does that impact your budget when you have fewer inmates? How many fewer did you have, and how does that affect your budget?
Well, last year at this time, I had a lot fewer, also because COVID. Unfortunately, though I had fewer, I had more people spread out throughout the facility because of positive cases, 7-day quarantine, 10-day quarantine, 14-day quarantine. Believe it or not, our population is starting to creep up again. This morning, I believe it was 461. Last year at this time, we were about 100 less than that. I think it's going to continue to slowly increase as people are finding that a lot of the bail reform right now is not working, and people are getting more brazen, and there's more lawlessness, and crime is getting more serious and more violent, which is giving the judges at that point the authority to put people in custody. I think our count is going to continue to rise. Last year, we ran with, at any given time, 75 to 90 correctional vacancies. We're slowly trying to hire. Quite honestly, sir, I can't get anybody to take the job, which is problematic within itself. So we're trying to hire. We're recruiting all over the place. I have provisional hires, which is, it's always a risk because there's a test coming out in December, and you hope and pray that they pass and are reachable. I think in this case they will be, because there's only 45 people signed up to take the test for the entire county. So that's a problem, but we will continue, and we plan on hiring, at a continual rate as they retire. There's a lot of people that are encroaching on their 25th year, which allows them to retire. There's people that are buying back military time, which allows them to retire earlier. It's become a very hard job because that the inmate that's in jail today is the very violent inmate. It's the inmates that normally you could mix them in with other inmates and everybody would keep the peace, but now I could have 50 inmates on one tier that are extremely violent, assaultive, throwing fecal matter, throwing urine at officers, fighting officers constantly. So it's a very violent place, but it's the same for every correctional facility in the state right now. But the population is growing.
Sheriff, you mentioned police overtime in the city of Albany. You really, it's an extraordinary effort and it's very costly. Is the city reimbursing us at all for that additional service?
Not at this point, no.
Do you expect that they will, or what's the status?
We've sent letters over. I believe the management and budget has also reached out and had conversations. I don't think it's going to happen.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. I just have a question. Can you tell me what's the projected number of individuals that will be served under the SHIP program out at the jail for 2022?
We're running a daily population right now of 25. It could increase tonight 2 or 3. It could go down tomorrow 2 or 3. Right now, it's been about 25 individuals on a steady rate with the highest of 29. We try to keep that number manageable, just simply until we can get through COVID. At that wing, you could handle up to 50.
Did you say up to 50?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions from any members? Well, I just want to thank you for all of the work that you're doing out at the jail. And, you know, between 911 and all that the officers are even doing within the city of Albany and in the hill towns. I just want to thank you very much for your service and also the people that, you know, put their lives on the line every single day. And I would like to wish you a happy Thanksgiving on behalf of the legislature.
Thank you all. I appreciate the time. Thank you for your support.
All right, you're very welcome. All right, we're going to move on now to the Comptroller's Office. Ms. Rizzo.
Madam Chairwoman, to the members of the Audit and Finance Committee, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the Comptroller's 2022 tentative annual budget. I'm here with my 2 executive deputies, Chip Dott and Mike Wheeler. I'd like to request approval of this budget, which was basically budget neutral for salaries before the county exec proposed a 2% raise. The only raise requested in my budget was for the chief auditor from 76,500 to 81,006. I'm proposing that she also gets the 2% raise in addition, which will be an additional 1,600. That is not budgeted. We will continue to remain budget neutral though, because there was a couple of errors in the calculations. In regards to the comprehensive workforce development plan, as part of my transition plan, when I assumed office in 2020, a significant reorganization of my office was implemented. Several positions were eliminated and some salary adjustments were made in the 21 budget. I felt that 2022 was not the time for another significant adjustment, but I very much look forward to working with the exec's office and management and budget to implement these strategies in 2023 budget. We responded to the committee's questions ahead of time, but if you have any questions at this time, be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rizzo. I see Mr. Grimm's hand up. Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you, Controller Rizzo.
Mr. Grimm.
In the budget this year, there's a proposal to create 2 new reserve funds. And it's the total of 6.75 million. And my understanding is that's something you were able to locate from past bond expenditures or something like that. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
So when we started, we scrubbed the books and we focused on the balance sheet. And there were capital accounts that we borrowed a certain amount of money and we may have spent less. So you can utilize that money for to pay principal and interest. So we put that money in the debt reserve. We also, I can't read that, sorry. We also, the legislators approved for the courthouse, there was a 700,000 reimbursement from the courthouse for renovation to the courthouse over the year, 10 years ago. And that money was never recognized as revenue. It was 700,000 a year, $7 million. So that's why we were able to actually identify the reserves.
So that's where the money, because the two funds I'm talking about are a capital reserve to reduce future borrowing, that's 3.75 million, and the retirement contributions are 3 million. That's where the money came from?
Correct.
Okay. What, do we have any flexibility on how to spend that money?
The money has to be utilized for principal and interest for the debt reserve. As far as, but the courts are not restricted.
Explain that.
So the $7 million from the courts is not restricted. It should have been recognized as revenue every year, and it wasn't.
So, so when we get to 7 million, we don't have to put it into a reserve fund?
No, we got the 7 million. We have it. It's on the
We have
balance
it.
sheet.
We just
We're
didn't.
putting it in a
recognize
reserve.
We just didn't recognize.
Right, correct.
So it's money that we have found, if you will. That's
It's
what
on
we
the
found.
balance sheet. Yes.
And that has to be used for principal and interest reduction?
No, that 7 million does not. That's
Okay.
why we're utilizing that money to not borrow for what the management budget is proposed, and we agree with that. In, for example, for vehicles, instead of borrowing for vehicles, if it's a 15-year bond, the vehicles don't last 15 years. So we will actually use cash to pay for those vehicles. So we will reduce our borrowing.
Okay, that's the plan to use the money, but the money has a little more flexibility if the legislation.
That's in the plan. That's correct. That's in the plan. And I agree with the plan.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. So I just have, excuse me. I just have one question for you. Okay. On page 217, how are the controller's fees and refund prior year expenses revenue, okay, for your department estimated from year to year?
The refund prior year expenses are when checks are actually voided. That number has ranged substantially from a couple $100,000 to over $1 million. So we have budgeted and increased the budget to the average of what it was over the several years, and that's where the $675,000 is.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rizzo. If there are no other questions from any of the members, I just want to thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for all of the work that you and your staff do. And also, I'd like to wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
All right, now on to the coroners and Mr. Kavanaugh. How are you?
Good, Madam Chair. How are you?
Very good.
I'd be happy answer any questions pertaining to our budget. Slightly up from last year.
You said slightly up. Okay, how about let's start with this then. Please comment on the increase in the fees for services line for $55,000 on page 224.
The increase is transportation in regards to moving deceased from the scene or a residence to the hospital. We pay the funeral directors a flat rate of $225, and last year was an extremely busy year, along with this year, probably the most I've done in 35 years. With the increase in opiate overdoses, homicides, suicides, that could justify for a lot of that. We did over 300 autopsies last year, where Albany County was averaging probably 250 prior to that. Last year was like a record year. And we are on track probably for the same amount this year, if not more.
On the same track for the same number this year?
Correct. Of autopsies, correct. And like I said, that fees for services is for transportation from the scenes, from hospital to hospital. 35 years, when I started 35 years ago, we were paying $125 for the funeral homes. So it's only going up $100 in 35 years, which other counties are paying a lot more than what we're paying.
That's an interesting comment.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Are there any other questions from any of the members?
Oh, buddy, come on, Mark, ask me something. We have waited 2.5 hours for this. Hey, we're very fortunate. We have Ellis Hospital. I don't know if everybody's been following Rensselaer County. They no longer can do any autopsies at Albany Med, so they're shipping all their cases down to Dutchess County. So 77 miles from Troy to Dutchess County. So they got a problem over there. We're very fortunate we have Ellis right now, and hopefully we continue to have Ellis, because Albany Medical Center obviously is looking to get out of the business totally, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of our cases originate out of Albany Med with that trauma center.
All right, it looks like.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you so much, Tim. We really appreciate all of the service, and we do understand that you all have been under a tremendous strain, this year.
It's not easy. Last couple of years probably been the worst years, Madam Chair, especially the overdoses and the homicides. Meeting these families, speaking with them, it's terrible. I had 2 on Saturday myself, overdoses. It's just very sad. And it's hitting all over.
Well, thank you so much for your comments. We do appreciate it. We do want to wish you and your family and your staff, though, happy holidays in the upcoming months here. And again, thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you very much. Everyone, enjoy your holiday, your Thanksgiving, and the holiday season. Stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Too.
All right, I just want to make sure all the members know this concludes our budget Audit and Finance Committee on agency budgets review. And right now we'll be moving on to, next steps. But if you do have any questions, again, remember you can email us at ledgebudget@albanycountyny.gov.
Hey, Wanda,
Yes, Ms. Lakakis.
you had earmarked a possible meeting tomorrow night after caucus, I think. That's not, or are you gonna use that or no?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay, so you'll let us know when our next get together is for the budget.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Okay, everyone, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
How many seconds do I have?
Second.
500.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we'll